Hello, my name is Holly Valandingham, and today I will be discussing cramming, and my presentation is called Slow and Steady Gets the A. We have all crammed for a test or project one or more times in our lives. It is far easier to wait until the last minute to complete a test than properly plan ahead and study regularly leading up to the test. However, this can be a negative long-term effect on our education and what we truly learn. Most people do not understand what is happening in our brain when we cram. After looking at the same information for hours upon hours, our brain starts to recognize the information and makes us believe we have learned it. However, we are only recognizing it, which is something different than being able to recall it. Your brain has different parts that support different. Recognize the study material from cramming that we have been looking at for hours. It is due to the visual cortex. However, when it comes time to take the test and recall the information, we use the frontal cortex and the temporal lobe, which coordinate to recreate a memory from the clues you give it. This creates a problem for studying and using the information you just spent hours cramming for. Just because your visual cortex is fluently processing your notes after 5 consecutive hours of looking at them doesn't mean the rest of your brain is going to be able to reconstruct the memory of them when you really need to. We sometimes actually get a passing grade when we cram and we think that cramming has paid off. However, we know that once the test is done, chances are we have not retained any of the information. This might not be the most horrible thing in high school or our freshman year in college, but once we reach a time in our life when studying material is not only necessary for that test, but for success in the future or life, it becomes a problem. For example, if a student crams for a test in the Introduction to Biology class and passes, what happens next semester when the student has to take Biology 1? Most of the information learned in the Intro to Biology class is needed for Biology 1. But by cramming and not truly learning the information, the student is now playing catch-up in Biology 1. There are many productive learning techniques that can be used in place of cramming. Many of these techniques sound like myths and normally do not actually work, but they do. 2 productive techniques are spacing effect, which is the total opposite of cramming, and the second is forgetting, which counteracts cramming and requires us not to feel guilty about forgetting information and see it as a positive rather than a negative. Spacing effect requires one to space out their studying time to double the amount of information learned. In 2009, for example, Nate Cornell, California, Los Angeles, found that spacing out learning was more effective than cramming for 90% of the participants who took part in one of his experiments. And yet 72% of the participants thought that cramming had been more beneficial. Spacing out is useful for learning new information. When you take time every day to review the information, you effectively learn the information because it becomes easier to learn and you remember it for a longer period of time. Hermann Ebbinghaus studied this theory and found evidence that showed a distribution of information over a space of time is decidedly more advantage than massing one of them at a single time. The spacing theory also debunks the fluency illusion, which tricks our mind into believing once we have memorized information, we no longer have to study. We think once we have nailed information, further study is not necessary and is a waste of time, which is not true. Continuously studying material for short bursts of time helps us learn and store information so we can recall it when necessary. Fluency plays tricks on our mind, according to Carey, who explains that when we study something twice in a space, spacing is hurting our learning. However, the opposite is true. You learn more even though it feels harder. Fluency is playing a trick on your judgment. According to a study at the University of Pennsylvania by Casey Hook and Martha Farah, it is believed neuroeducation is ready to be extended to classroom practice. Their study indicated that learning about neuroscience can help educators maintain patience, optimism, and professionalism with their students, and increase their credibility with colleagues and parents, and renew their sense of professional purpose. Teachers often become stressed when students do not learn the information they are teaching, or become discouraged that students are not comprehending the information given in a classroom. When teachers understand how a student learns and interprets information, they can alter their teaching to fit the student's needs, which can lower stress in the classroom. Due to the fact that all students learn and interpret information differently, it is essential that teachers understand how to relay the information to each student. Carrie explored cognitive learning in the classroom with perceptual learning. Perceptual learning is meant for a certain kind of target, according to Carrie, discriminating or classifying things that look the same to the untrained eye but are not. Perceptual learning can be administered by a teacher or be self-regulated. PLM is effective for learning new information by incorporating the spacing effect. Carrie explains that this type of teaching is not a substitution to traditional teaching, but instead a supplement to teaching. There's an upside of forgetting. Most assume it's bad, but often forgetting is a friend of learning. There is a common belief that forgetting is a bad thing, and if we forget information, say for a test, it means we did not study hard enough or dedicate enough time to the topic. However, this is not true. There are many upsides to forgetting. Forgetting allows the brain to focus and act as a spam filter. Often when we remember too much, we forget the important information we are trying to recall. By forgetting, it opens up free space in your mind where you can store new information and have it be readily available for use. Forgetting also acts as a motivation. If we learned a topic in school and never forgot any of the information, it would discourage further studying or learning. When we forget information, it allows the brain to continue to build, like an exercised muscle. Just like a muscle, if you don't use it, you lose it. The same goes with information that is stored in your mind. Memories evaporate entirely from the brain over time if not used. So, when we cram, it is not effective, and we're tricking our mind to believe that we actually learned the information, but we didn't. So there's more productive ways of learning, like the spacing effect, which requires us to study for short bursts of time over a longer period of time. Thank you.